My name is Aishah Shahidah Simmons, and I use she, her pronouns. And I'm zooming in from the unceded Lenni Lenape Indigenous Territory, which spans a lot of geographic space in the Northeast corridor of the United States. And I am in, no, where I am located is now known as Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So really happy. It's my first time here at the Queer Sangha, and thank you, Coral, for the invitation. It's been a long time, and we've been planning this for a while, so I'm happy it was able to happen. So I'll want to begin with a short um, meditation, and then we'll segue into um, as two Dharmets merged into one. We'll see how that works. But for now, I want to invite you to find a position where you're just really relaxed. It's a well, I forget. Wait, let me not be Americentric. You all are in Toronto. I'm so like, these are horrible times, but the country's unraveling. That's what's happening down here. But still, they're pretty intense times globally. And yeah, and as queer folks, I just feel like it's just landing on us in so many ways, impacting a lot of folks. And there's and just the weight that it lands on us, especially my non-binary, trans, two-spirit, intersex siblings. So just really inviting you to be as much as you can and feel comfortable being in the body, and relaxing the body, and also being able to be alert as well. And if you're comfortable closing your eyes, and if not comfortable closing your eyes, just lowering your gaze or softening your gaze. So often it takes a few minutes before we fully arrive. Our bodies are always in the present moment, but it may take some intentional breaths before the heart mind is present with the body. So if taking breaths are comfortable for you, just inviting you to take 3 intentional breaths at your pace. Just the inhale and the exhale, connecting connecting with the earth, both beneath us and above us, arriving in this moment. Turning or inclining your attention to the sense doors to support you coming into the present moment. Perhaps it's the sounds that you hear, the sensations that you're feeling in the body. The inhalation and exhalation. Notice what you're attuning to in this moment. Inviting the release of judging mind and fixing mind and comparing mind, and bringing instead beginner's mind, each moment is anew. Notice what you're tuning to. Is it sound? Is it your breath? Is it the sensation of the body sitting, standing, lying down? Can you cultivate a sense of awareness of the whole body moving in space when we inhale, and the awareness of relaxation with each exhale? Be here, be now. Words from Black lesbian Zen Buddhist priest elder Zenju Earthling Manual from her book, The Way of Tenderness Awakening Through Race, Sexuality, and Gender. We must come through the fire of our lives to experience awakening. We are all tender no matter where we fall on the continua within race, sexuality, and gender. We are tender in a raw sense and not necessarily in a soft and gentle way. This tenderness is of a wounded nature, We are all sore from the hatred. Our tenderness is our aching sensitivity and ultimately our vulnerability. This raw feeling is not only expected by those who have been oppressed, abused, and discriminated against. Experiences of hatred, whether giving or receiving it, have no boundaries. The abuser or oppressor also experiences a wounded tenderness. One cannot hate without knowing the experience of it. After all, aren't those who are perceived to be dominant in our society hated too? Can we be tender in the raw sense and still actively walk the path of liberation? Thank you for your sitting practice. Mm. Inviting you to bring in gentle movement if you haven't already, just to come back. So I've been thinking a lot about what does it mean to be tender in these times. Um, and I shared with Coral that I was really torn between a lot of topics, but landed on Upeka, equanimity, and also wanted to touch upon the five remembrances, um, two practices, along with others, especially the Brahma Viharas, that I've been really working with, walking with um, in these times. And I wanted to open with a quote that um, I heard at a sit in January last year, 2024, with Tanisara and Kitasaro um, in response to what was happening, still is happening in Gaza. And the quote was shared by Dharma sibling and teacher J.D. Doyle, and it comes from the book called Hospicing Modernity by Vanessa Machado de Oliveira. And the quote is: modernity also conditions us to avoid, escape, or want to be rescued from discomfort and to gravitate toward what validates our egological desires for the six C's of comfort, convenience, consumption, certainty, control, and coherence. We keep building up more stuff that gives us a temporary feeling of contentment and security. However, the more stuff we accumulate, the more this stuff distracts and prevents us from being present to what is real and relevant in the world, inside and outside of ourselves. Even those who identify as transgressive or nonconforming may find decluttering difficult. close quotes. And I've been thinking a lot about these 6 C's of comfort, convenience, consumption, certainty, control, and coherence, and really thinking about how they, my personal grasping for many of them, how they really, how the practice of the five remembrances really supports my turning toward um, suffering, turning toward discomfort, turning toward fear and permanence, um, and not looking for distractions. Now, I think that there's something to be said to be like to take a break, to also zone out while we also zone in. Um, but the remembrances, and I want to share more of less a modernized version of them in terms of the interpretation. They are come from the Upajjhatana Sutta, which is subjects for contemplation, and it is said that the Buddha encouraged practitioners to really reflect on these remembrances every day. And so I will share them. For the first one is, I am of the nature to grow old. How can I grow old with grace? And in many youth-oriented uh, cultures, which is really so much the case in the West, that is something that I mean, I'm happy to be a middle-aged person, but I am also aware of that getting older also means body changing and all, and just not being able to do certain things that I was at once able to do. And so just and just being with that, like just being with that awareness and not turning away from it. The second remembrance is, I am of the nature to get sick. How can I show tenderness to myself during sickness? And every time I get a cold or sick, I'm like, why am I sick? What happened? How did I get this? And so, and it's like, oh yeah, the second of the five remembrance, I am of the nature to get sick. I got COVID for the first time ever in the end of December. So I missed the whole holiday period with my family. And I just remember just being so angry, like that I had it. And I also remember prior to having it that I was like, oh, I've never had it. I didn't get COVID. So just even observing my own ego in like not having had COVID, my spouse has had COVID, everybody in my life practically has had it. And for some unknown reason, I never got it until December. And it was horrible and wretched. And it lasted, I would say, almost to the end of January before I started to feel okay again. But just, and then just thinking about how I was wallowing in initially, like, why am I sick? Like, so that I couldn't even just accept that this was the reality. And this happens even like when I get a cold, if I feel a tickle in my throat, it's like I don't think I should be sick. Or that I don't, that, yeah, that I'm not, I forget that I am of the nature to get sick. And three, I am of the nature to die. How can I be conscious of this truth? And we can't have life without death. It is an integral part of the process. And even with understanding that, it is still a jolt to, reflect upon, like, one day I'm not going to be here. Hopefully I will live a long life, hopefully healthy life. And I don't know, of the nature to get sick, but it's just really finding, I don't know if it's comfort. I don't necessarily saying comfort, but just being aware that this is part of the process. And again, in an effort to like not look elsewhere for comfort, but to being able to be like, oh yeah, that this is part of this journey called life. The fourth one is, everything I care about and everyone I love is of the nature to change. I will be separated from them. How can I love without attachment? In the past few weeks, I've lost three friends, and they've been sudden, like unexpected. Didn't see them coming. One was an elder who was in his 80s, a Black gay elder who was one of my closest confidants and friends. I mean, our lifespan was 30 years apart, but he was just one of my dearest friends. And even though he talked about having lived a good life and just really, not that he thought he was going to die, but just being at peace with it, it is just such a blow. And I think in every time, not only just through death, even when I've lost friends around differences of opinions or experiences, and just that recognition that, you know, e- every that it's just at the end when we're taking our last conscious breath, we're the ones who are going to take it by unless it's like with a group somewhere, right? If it's, something catastrophic happening. um and again, it's not really, I don't view it, I should say, as a morbid way of moving in life. It is just a way of bringing awareness. I'm mourning my friends, and I'm also in mourning that I will never see them in their physical form again. I do believe in ancestors and definitely believe that their presence is with me in all ways. It's just different than the ways in which I've known them to be. But it is also important to remember that we will be separated from everything and everyone. Um, and how can we love? So it doesn't mean not love or not attach in a healthy, I would say, way, but how do we do it in a way that is unconditional and not conditional? And the fifth one is I am the owner of my actions, and that includes thoughts and words. They are the ground upon which I stand. They are my continuation. How can I act with skillfulness in body, heart, and mind? And this is also, I mean, they're all important, but I always am reminded and reminding myself that the only person I can change is Aishah Shahidah Simmons. I can work to definitely be a part of seeking transformation from others, but that I am responsible for my thoughts and words, that they are my continuation. They are the ground upon which I stand. And so knowing that, how do I move? How do I engage with those that I care about? And equally as important, those that I don't have an affinity for, or don't particularly like, or don't, or feel that they are not, they are out in terms of committed to my annihilation. Like, how do I move in body, heart, and mind? And so these five remembrances, I feel like, can serve as a roadmap, as a guide of many guides, in terms of how we move, um, in any times, right? Like this isn't like unique to these times, but it's just in all times. Like, how do we engage? Um, like, if we fully thought like, wow, I may not be here tomorrow or next week, how do I want to move with those that I care about, even those that I don't care about? How can I move with compassion? Can I move with skillfulness? If and when I get sick, can I, definitely do all that I can to get well, but not just kind of like, why me? Why me? And just kind of wallow in it, making, actually, for me at least, the situation exponentially worse than itself, because I'm just like, why am I sick? As opposed to just like, okay, I'm sick. This is what I'm going to do to get well, and hopefully that will happen. But just remembering, oh yeah, I am the nature to get sick. So I wanted to bring in the five remembrances with Upeka, known as equanimity or balance, um, because it is for me, and I learned this from one of my teachers, Doral Williams. It is really as far as I'm concerned, it's like the bass drum. It is so foundational to so many of the practices in Buddhism, right? That it's the fourth of the Brahma Viharas of, metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. It is the seventh of the seven factors of enlightenment. It's the 10th of the 10 paramis known as the 10 perfections. It really, for me, upekkha holds the steady beat, regardless of what the other instruments are doing. Um, Equanimity is balance. And so I believe that it can support us in our work or with the five remembrances because it's not easy to be like, oh, I'm the nature to get sick. I'm in the nature to die. Everything that I'm attached to or love or care about, I will be separated from. That's not easy stuff to to hold and walk with, right? But equanimity it provides like this framework for us to find balance. And it is through that balance that wisdom and insight can arise. And it's so important to emphasize over and over again that equanimity, upekkha, does not mean indifference or apathy or not caring or being aloof or distant or cold. That it 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 is really a fierce practice. It supports our managing our internal reactions to what is true, including those qualities that we may not want to face within ourselves and also externally. And Upeka also keeps us from being swept in what is known as the eight worldly winds of pleasure and pain, and gain and loss, and praise and blame, and fame and disrepute. Often, many of us spend so much time grasping for one and running away from the other without fully understanding that it's rare that we have one without the other. It's rare that we have gain without loss, and praise without blame, and fame without disrepute, or pleasure without pain, that they're in this cyclical dance, right? And it's because of our craving for one and aversion to its opposite that we're experiencing like tornadoes, category 5 tornadoes wreaking havoc in our lives without the awareness of impermanence, and with the ability to practice equanimity and cultivate balance. Um, and I want to really emphasize that it's not the wins in of themselves. It's really our reactions to them. They give rise to a wide range of feelings that can take us on either end of the pendulum of extreme highs and devastating lows. The work through our Dharma or mindfulness practice is to really strive or really work, I should say, to cultivate a level of equanimity on either end of the spectrum. So even when it's like, woo, can we find equanimity knowing that this too will change? And when it's like, ugh, can we find equanimity knowing that this too will change? And it won't change necessarily immediately, may not even change in our lifetime, but it is changing, you know? Um, the challenge is that without fully understanding with these that when we're holding craving and aversion, that we are awakening but not eradicating the three poisons that are sleeping volcanoes known as greed, hatred, and delusion. So craving is a form of greed, and aversion is a form of hatred, and delusion about what is and what isn't the reality lurks amid the two. And none of this releases us from pain or suffering, right? So these energies become hindrances or blockages because our conditioned habit is to be identified with them, identified with these winds, right? And then that creates a whole series of feelings, emotions, and it really makes it difficult to see with wisdom and clarity what is the best way forward, right? And so when we meet these energies with mindfulness and care and upekkha, balance, equanimity, these same energies become an immediate gateway to increased aliveness and spiritual awakening. Equanimity provides stability, it offers an evenness of the mind, an unshakable freedom of mind, right? And so it is not about bypassing. We need to be aware of our feelings. We should not suppress them. We should not deny them. Instead, can we be with them and work to cultivate equanimity um, with the practices? Black gay writer James Baldwin said, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." And I believe it is equanimity that's one of many antidotes to despair. And instead of turning away from reality, upekkha supports our turning toward reality with balance. And so, with so many rapid changes happening throughout the world and our climate, our only shared home, Earth, just in complete peril, can we create a space of wisdom and compassion in the face of horror and brutality? Can we respond and not react to the onslaught of injustices happening moment to moment to moment? Equanimity is available to us when the vicissitudes arise. Instead of looking for or craving the pleasant, we can enjoy it, appreciate it, and let it go. We are both conditioned and taught to believe that in order for things to be right, we must change our outer conditions. This thing that's painful, challenging, and difficult has to go away. I gave the example of my reaction to COVID. you know, the level of impulse towards finding an immediate solution to alleviate whatever is ailing us personally and societally makes it really difficult for us to pause, right? And then move with discernment. And when thinking about all of the horrid injustices happening and in the world, let alone perhaps in our inner lives, especially as queer people and those of us who are also people of color and queer, it's hard, I know, for me to not believe I have to find a solution right now. And yet I also understand that I can't do that work when I am unbalanced and in reactivity mode. And so Upeka supports responding and not reacting. When we soften without worrying about solving while we are averse, our capacity to come up with a skillful means can arise. It is through this balanced perspective, which is wise view, that we can see with insight and wisdom what is the most appropriate and humane thing that you can do in response, not reaction to harm. We can't look away from all the causes and conditions that have come together to exacerbate the violence in our minds if we are not aware. While there is a wide spectrum of who causes violence, no one, including every single one of us in this Zoom room, is exempt. We are all here co creating our inner universes and our external universe every single minute of every single day. Are we aware of our reactivity, of our prejudices, our greed, our delusion, regardless of how minute or even humongous? Can we be interested in and curious about all of our internal reactivity, hatred, prejudices, delusion, and greed? Often we can see it everywhere, but within ourselves. Everyone and everything else is the problem, but not me. No, they all need to change. Can we bow to the inevitability of us looking at the ways in which we cause harm, even in response to harm, which doesn't take away from all the ways in which we experience harm? Can we be interested and curious, as hard as it is, about what this awareness has to teach us, how we respond in our reactivity and hatred and prejudices? Upeka supports our managing our internal reactions to what is true. We can tune in to contemplate, what am I called to do in these moments? What gifts do you have that you can bring, not material, to respond and not react? All that we need to transform this world is, is within us. We are indeed able to heal that which is wounded internally and externally. And it is through equanimity that supports our cultivating the ability to meet whatever is facing us, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral, with evenness. So we cultivate equanimity to discern. We cultivate equanimity so that we can be compassionately firm in the wind. We can bend and not break. Upeka is our anchor amid the groundlessness and our surfboard amid the waves. We may go under from time to time, but if we don't let go of our anchor or our surfboard, we can climb up and begin again. And I want to be clear that there's so much space and room for spiritual bypass, and we have to be mindful. And I speak as a Buddhist that I don't believe in allowing any form of spiritual supremacy to bypass these stark realities for so many in our society and globally. We aren't faking it until we make it. This is why it's so important to pause. And if we react, observe how quickly we can come back from that reaction. We have to embody compassion based practices to walk through the fires, threatening to suffocate those closest to the fire first. And all of us, including those who ignited the fire of hatred and violence. We can't ignore the fires, hoping they will go away. We have to bring equanimity, accountability, loving kindness, compassion, and more loving kindness and healing to the fires of injustice. We risk being eaten alive and transforming into the very entities we seek to eradicate if we don't. So, learning how to practice with equanimity or deepening one's established equanimity practice can be a powerful tool for transforming our internal reactions to what is true within ourselves, that which we may not want to acknowledge, as well as the external challenges that seem or are insurmountable. And so, in closing, I just want to offer questions developed by Dharma teacher Larry Yang, that he offered them as a loving kindness practice. And I have um, brought them into my equanimity practice, especially in these just turbulent times. And there are a series of questions that I strive to ask, especially when I feel my most reactive and definitely feel very righteous in my reactivity. Let me be clear. But I have learned that it is often when I am most reactive that I run the risk of causing more harm versus when I can pause and respond. So let me be clear. I'm not saying ignore, condone. I just want to be able to respond. And in the words of Audre Lorde, be deliberate and intentional with my responses. So the questions are, can I be loving to myself and others in this moment? And if I can't be loving to myself and others in this moment, can I be kind? And if I can't be kind in this moment, can I be non judgmental in this moment. And if I can't be non judgmental in this moment, can I not cause harm in this moment? And if I cause harm in this moment, can I cause the least amount of harm possible in this moment? May we all work to cultivate equanimity. May it serve as an anchor, a surfboard, amidst the turbulent waves. May we remember the five remembrances as we engage on our journey called life. Thank you, and I look forward to engaging in conversation with all of you here.